Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and welcome back to another episode of the Book Report, my weekly check-in where I come hang out with you guys, let you all know what I've been reading, what I'm planning to read next, all that kind of fun stuff. But I also like to hear and want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you all have been reading this week. What books have you been enjoying? Let me know all that down in the comments below. I'm going to do things kind of out of order this week. I usually start with what I read most recently, but today I want to start out with my kind of my spooky season TBR. We're about to be in the Burr months, September, October, November, and December. And at least for September and October, maybe getting into November, I want to read basically just straight up horror books. You know, this channel, if you're familiar with the channel, it was built basically on the back of horror books. That wasn't the intention starting out. When I started the channel, I was kind of reading everything, and then I kind of went down the rabbit hole and got sucked into the indie horror world and all that stuff, and was kind of consistently only a horror channel for a while, but I branched out again reading other stuff. But for at least September and October, I want to get back into specifically reading some horror. So I've got a stack of horror books here that I would like to try to tackle in the next couple months or so. I'm terrible with TBRs, so I'm hesitant to call it a TBR because I'm bad at sticking to those. But this is a stack of possibilities. I think Mindy from Minnie's Book Journey says that, a stack of possibilities. I probably won't get to all these, but these are what are on my radar books I would like to read for September and October. So first up, I've been talking about it recently, The Stand by Stephen King. That's about to break my arm. This book's heavy. The Stand by Stephen King. Haven't read this before. I did start it in the past. Is my bookmark still in here? Let's see. Yeah, it is. I got to page 430, chapter 44 of it previously. I was enjoying it. I was doing the podcast, paper cuts and everything, and just other books came up that I wanted to prioritize. So this one kind of fell by the wayside and I never went back to it. I was enjoying it, so I'm going to start it over because that was a while ago. I don't remember everything that happened, but I want to start fresh. And I want to read this book because for one, it's Stephen King. He's my favorite author. This is one of his most popular books. I haven't read it yet. I want to read it for that reason, but also just recently, a new anthology came out called The End of the World as We Know It, which is a bunch of different authors have come together and written stories that take place within this world. And I want to read that as well because it sounds really awesome. People have been leaving comments saying how far they are into it, and that's been a blast for them so far. So I want to read The Stand first, and then I want to get to that anthology. This is like a bucket list King book, one of the more popular ones I haven't read yet. It might be the most popular one of his that I haven't read yet. I'm looking at my shelf up there. The only other one that might be close is like Christine, but I don't think Christine is as popular as this one. I would say this is probably the most popular King book that I haven't read yet. So The Stand is one of them. I want to get to that one. Finally check that off of the King list. Next up is In the Valley of the Sun by Andy Davidson. With this book, Andy Davidson, he's probably also one of my favorite authors. He's only got 3 books out. I've read 2 of them. Both of them were 5-star reads. And this one, I guess I've kind of been subconsciously saving this book. There was a video from Matt from Books from the Back Porch, I think his channel is called. He put up a video the other day about saving books and if that's a good thing or bad thing. And I guess I have been saving this book without really thinking about specifically saving this book. But it's his only other book that's out right now, and I love his stuff so much. His writing is awesome. His other 2 books are The Boatman's Daughter and The Hollow Kind. Awesome books. I love his stuff. So I guess I've been kind of saving this one without meaning to save this one. This was actually his debut novel. It was nominated for a Bram Stoker Award. It takes place in Texas. I know there's a vampire involved and a Texas Ranger and a cowboy. I think the Texas Ranger might be tracking down the cowboy who's turned into a vampire, I think is maybe kind of what's going on. But yeah, I love Andy Davidson's writing. I love vampire novels. So like those 2 things together, this potentially has like the recipe to be like a perfect book for me. I'm really excited for it. This is In the Valley of the Sun by Andy Davidson. I hope he comes out with a new book soon because I really just absolutely love his writing. Next up is Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. He's actually an author I haven't read yet, kind of surprisingly. He's got a lot of horror books. He's kind of moved into the more fantasy horror mixed together. This one, he's got like The Black Tongue Thief. There's another one called The Daughter's War, which I think is in the same realm as the Black Tongue Thief, same world. This is a horror novel set in the Middle Ages. It's during the Black Plague, so a medieval horror novel. I've heard really good things about it. I think it's getting re-released with a new publisher. I think this was indie published because the font is gigantic in here. Big margins, big font. I feel like this was maybe indie published back in the day. I think it's coming out with Tor, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's who his newer books are with, and it's gonna have like red sprayed edges. It looks really cool. But yeah, this one I've heard good things about. I don't know if I've read a medieval horror novel before. Not that I can think of, but this one sounds cool. This is Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. This one has been on my TBR for quite a long time. Hope to get to it this year. This is Night Film by Marisha Pessel. This one's cool. It's got like pictures and stuff in here of like crime scenes and evidence and stuff. And this one is about, so there's like this eccentric kind of recluse indie filmmaker out in Hollywood, and his daughter ends up being found dead. They don't know if it's murder or suicide, but I think we're following the investigation into that, into what happened to her. And I'm assuming maybe the father becomes a suspect, or maybe has something to do with it, because he's kind of this weird, strange, haunting kind of filmmaker. But I've heard this one is really good, and I could use like a really good kind of murder mystery. And I like films being, books about films are also very interesting. So looking forward to this one. This is Night Film by Marisha Pessel. I've heard really good things about that one. Catriona Ward. This is Sundial by Catriona Ward. She is another one of my favorite authors. The Last House on Needless Street is one of my all-time favorite horror novels. Awesome. She doesn't like the word twist. Awesome reveals in that book. I've read two of her other books too. Looking Glass Sound and Little Eve. Both of them have reveals, twists in them as well. This one is one of her newer ones. It's not the newest, but one of the more recent ones. And what I know about it is we're following this mother, and like her oldest daughter, I think, who's still a little kid though, is starting to kind of creep her out some. Like, is doing things that reminds her of kind of the family she ran away from. She collects like bones of animals and stuff like that, just kind of freaking her mom out. And I think the mom takes the daughter back to where she grew up and has kind of like a decision to make. And it almost seems like a decision like, is she going to like sacrifice her daughter or something like that? I don't know. That might not be it at all. But knowing Catriona Ward's writing, there's going to be some kind of twist, some kind of reveal in here. I love this cover. This cover is awesome. This is Sundial by Catriona Ward, another author whose writing I really love. So looking forward to that one. That might be, I think her debut novel is the only other one of hers I haven't read yet. I think that one's called like Raw Blood or something. But I've read all of her other books except that one and her debut. Another author I really enjoy. And then the last one I have on my spooky season TBR, if you will, is The Fisherman by John Langan. Another book I've heard amazing things about. Author Robert Atone has been trying to get me to read this forever and ever. I'm finally going to be getting to it. I've heard, like I said, great things about this one. This one's kind of a cosmic horror novel, I believe. Really, all I know about it is it takes place in like upstate New York, and there's two widowers who are friends, I believe, and they end up going fishing, and then like the creek they're going fishing in or whatever has some strange elemental properties to it that, if I'm guessing, can maybe help them bring back the dead, bring back their wives. That's my guess. I have no idea if that's true or not, but I've heard this is awesome. A great cosmic horror story with brilliant writing. I don't think it's very long either. Yeah, it's less than 300 pages, but another one that I've been harped on to read, and I haven't got around to it yet, but looking forward to this one. This one is The Fisherman by John Langan. So those are my spooky season TBR. Let's see, 6 books. I'd love to get through all those. I don't know if it'll happen because The Stand is a big chunker of a book. That one will probably take me a while. I think Lonesome Dove took me about a month. That was about 800 pages. I think The Stand is like 1,100 or so. So I'm assuming that's going to take me, good handful of weeks to get through that one. So that is my spooky season TBR. So what did I finish reading most recently? So earlier this week, I finished up Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. This book was awesome. I had an absolute blast with this book. It was so much fun. This book was super hyped up online on Book Talk and Bookstagram and stuff like that. And for me, this one did live up to the hype. I had a blast with it, like I said. If you are a fan of RPG kind of style video games like Skyrim or Borderlands or like Diablo, if you're a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, I think you will get a big kick out of this book and be highly entertained by it. There's some like deeper stuff that's going on here, but for me, it was just pure like summer blockbuster movie entertainment with this book. It's post-apocalyptic. At the very beginning of the book, kind of the not too much of a spoiler. I believe it says it in the synopsis, but like these aliens come in and basically decimate Earth. Whoever was inside a building gets killed, and the survivors have the option to enter this dungeon. It's basically kind of like Hunger Games. It's this giant game that's broadcast out to the universe, and then if they make it to the final level of the dungeon, they end up get the opportunity to be the ruler of Earth. The only catch is no one has ever gotten all the way through the dungeon. So all these millions of people enter the dungeon, including our main character Carl and his ex-girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut. And this book was super funny. Like I said, if you're a fan of Dungeons and Dragons and RPGs, I think you'll think it's even more funny because there's a lot of kind of inside baseball types of jokes and things that go along with that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was a blast. It was super fast paced. This book is like 450 pages. I read it, and for me, it was pretty fast. I read it in like 4 or 5 days, which for me is pretty fast for a book this size. So I blew through it. My only tiny little nitpick, I was really close to giving this 5 stars, which was like 4.75. It did get a tiny little bit repetitive. That's my only, tiny little baby nitpick about this book. But other than that, the characters are quirky and unique and interesting. The dungeon has all these cool monsters in it. There's lots of action and boss battles and blood and guts. There's lots of jokes and comedy in here. And I really enjoyed I think it's called the lit RPG elements, which is kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. It'll have, the loot they're getting and what the effects their loot has and how it affects their stats. Like it'll give plus to their dexterity or their constitution. And then, they get the treasure, all this kind of fun stuff. It was just a lot of fun, and I'm very much anticipating continuing on with the series. What is book 2 called? Like the Anarchist Cook? No, Carl's Doomsday Scenario is book 2. So I'm going to be getting that one. I'll probably read it later this year once I get through like my September, October spooky books. Maybe I'll get back into this series, towards November and December, because I do want to come back to it because the main story kind of left off in a bit of a cliffhanger, and then afterwards there is kind of this bonus story following another character we met earlier in the book, and that was like part 1. So I think there's one of those parts of that story at the end of every book. So I'm looking forward to continuing both of those storylines with Carl and Donut, and then the other character, we get the little kind of short story at the end, the part 1 of their short story. Anyway, I'm rambling. This book was awesome. Definitely read it if you're into those things I described earlier. This is Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. I had a blast with this book. I'm glad it lived up to the hype for me because that usually doesn't happen. If a book's super hyped up, it's usually a letdown somewhat. That one was not. Had a lot of fun with that one. So that's what I read last week. I had a few days where I didn't read last week, but what am I currently reading? So I just started this one. This is Educated by Tara Westover. It's a memoir. I only read the first chapter, but I am enjoying it so far. So with this one, I've never read a memoir before, and I didn't really know what to expect with like the writing, because I feel like people who write memoirs, they're not typically writers. They're doing other things and, decide to write about, this specific time in their life. So I wasn't sure what to expect from the actual writing here, but it reads like fiction so far, at least for the first chapter. It's very descriptive, very visual. Like I could visualize what she was talking about. At the beginning, she's standing out in this field on top of this red train car, on her property. I could visualize the writing, and I am enjoying, like I said, only first chapter, so I can't say too much about it. And it's also someone's life, so I don't want to like judge too much about it because this is, what really happened to her. But it's interesting so far. She lives with her parents, and she's got sisters and brothers, and her dad is very like hyper religious. They're not allowed to go to school. Any of the children are not allowed to go to school. At one point in the first chapter, he's reading a passage from the Bible where he thinks milk is a bad thing. So he throws out all the milk, and they're only allowed to eat honey. And with their cereal, they pour like water on their cereal. They're not allowed to have any milk for a while. And he just brings all this honey in. They're eating all this honey. And then he's also talking about this other kind of farm, I guess in their same community, where the family did something, I can't remember what, but the FBI had come in and kind of blocked them in their house. Kind of like, I'm going to be blanking on what it is. Waco, like Waco, Texas, kind of a scenario. So I don't know if that was actually true or if he was talking about Waco itself. I don't remember. But so far, so good. I'm enjoying it. Very interested to continue on with this one. This is Educated by Tara Westover. And then I'm also still listening to Two Towers on audiobook, narrated by Andy Serkis, by Tolkien. Got about 6 hours left. I'm enjoying it. This has been a slow process. I started this book, I felt like, at the beginning of the year. I took off basically all summer listening to it because I didn't have time to listen to audiobooks, getting back into it. But yeah, we're following Frodo and Sam as I try to get into Mordor, and listening to Andy Serkis do the narration for Gollum in the audiobook has been awesome. So that's where I am with that. I won't say too much more about it. Everyone knows what happens in the Two Towers, but I'm still listening to that, still slowly but surely chugging away on the Two Towers on audiobook. But other than that, that is everything I've got for you all this week. If you have like a spooky season TBR, if you're planning to read any horror books this coming September and October, I'd love to hear from you and let me know what those are down in the comments below.